Welcome to the Azure Cosmos DB Global User Group for May 2024. I'm Jay Gordon, and I'm a Senior Program Manager on the Azure Cosmos DB team, and I'm really thrilled to have you join us today. We get together about once a month, maybe the second or third Tuesday of that month, and we try to really understand what people in our community are doing right now with Azure Cosmos DB. And we've got an exciting session lined up with our guests today. It's Bill Reynolds. He is the CTO of Qarbine, and we're going to talk a little bit about some really great stuff related to AI. And we're going to be talking about RAG, and we're going to be talking about vector search capabilities, all these things that are really important now, where when it comes to how people are building intelligent applications. Now, before we do this, we've got a few pieces of housekeeping to do. And I also want to give a special thank you to our community, our audience, all of you. But before we do that, I want to bring in one of our wonderful members of the Reactor. And we have someone new this week. Hey, Danny, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I'm so glad to be here. I love doing these. I do these once a month. Askia, who's from your team, he's normally my compatriot in doing this, but got you this week, and I'm really glad that you're here. I know you've got some really important housekeeping to go ahead and share with our audience. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up your slide, and if you want to just share with everybody what's going on.
Awesome. Yes. So hi, everyone. My name's Danny. I'm the event planner for Microsoft Reactor, located in New York. Just if you all didn't know, Microsoft Reactor seeks to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. We encourage engagement in the chat, but please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. This session is recorded. It'll be available on demand through the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel in about 48 to 72 hours. I will share the link in the chat for our channel. If you've not been on a live stream through YouTube before, please note that you must create an account on YouTube to have access and interact in the chat. You can set that up now. If you are unable to use the chat but have questions, please feel free to reach out to us through social media or on Meetup.
Very cool. Well, Danny, thank you very much. And I know we'll be talking at the end of the show. Stick around. I know you're going to have some really cool things to see from our guests today.
Great.
See you later, Danny.
Thank you.
Cool. So we've gotten through some of our little bit of housekeeping, but I have my own little bit of housekeeping that I want to talk about. And so we recently had Azure Cosmos DB Conf last month. We had such a great time. We learned a lot together. We heard from customers. We heard from community members. We even heard from some great people here at Microsoft that are building products that you can use or are not just building products, but actually implementing them. And I thought it was really cool to hear from them. So I put together this little highlight reel, and I'd love you to watch it. It's only about 2 minutes. I want you to get through this, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk to somebody else about intelligent applications in AI. So I'll see you in just a sec. Here are some highlights from Azure Cosmos DB Conf 2024.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Azure Cosmos DB Conf 2024. My name is Tara.
And I'm Stephanie.
And we're super excited to be your hosts this year.
Hello, and welcome to our annual Azure Cosmos DB Developer Conference. I'm Kirill Gavriluk. I lead the Azure Cosmos DB team, and I'm so excited to have you all here today.
Now, that's enough slides. Let's get into a demo. So I'm going to walk through a Jupyter notebook where we're building a RAG pattern application in Python, and we're going to leverage Azure Cosmos DB for MongoDB.
Yeah, what are people saying on socials? I want to give a quick shout out to Peter watching from New York.
My name is Robert Finlayson. I'm a Senior Product Manager at KPMG Australia. We utilize Azure Cosmos DB NoSQL database to store our conversational histories for Kimchat.
Check in on our socials. I see that someone here has posted their speaker swag. So,
Hello everyone. Welcome to Azure Cosmos DB Conference 2024. My name is Tina Adnani, and today I'll be talking on building eventually consistent applications with Azure Cosmos DB.
Your data in Cosmos DB databases or SQL databases is automatically replicated into Microsoft OneLake in Delta Parquet format.
Other features from Azure Cosmos DB that we use, like data replication and failover switching policies.
Leverage a new preview feature called dynamic scaling, in which autoscale will now scale each region's throughput in the partitions independently.
We offer a platform to let car makers build such cockpits. And within this context, we asked ourselves, what could it be to actually have a conversation with your car? And what can conversational AI mean?
Yeah, thank you so much. I really had a great time. I don't know, Tara, I think hearing from all of the speakers, I really enjoyed my time here today. And thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you next year.
Yeah, see you guys.
We had such wonderful hosts, Stephanie and Tara. I really, really appreciated how they did everything. So everyone, thank you so much. Now let's stop looking at yesterday. Let's look at today. What are we going to be doing today? We're going to be talking about using Qarbine. We're going to be talking about Azure OpenAI. We're going to be talking a little bit about Azure Cosmos DB, of course, because, this is an Azure Cosmos DB show. So I hope we'll be talking about it. Anyhow, I want to go ahead and I want to bring in my guest. And to do so, I want you all to just go ahead in the chat, give them a hello, say thanks, and also let us know where you're watching from. But first, I'm going to bring in Bill. Hey, Bill, thanks for joining us today.
Good to see you, Jay.
It's really great to have you. And so I know we're going to be talking about really great subjects related to AI, RAG pattern, vector databases, all those things. We've got so much to learn from you today. And we all know this is the new hotness. Everybody wants to talk about generative AI. It is what's really powering application development right now. But before we get into that, Bill, I would really like to learn a little bit more about yourself. So I always ask this of people is how'd you get here? What was your road into becoming the CTO of Qarbine?
Sure. So my background is about half the time building tools for developers, and the other half actually building applications, some of which have been sent out worldwide, in this case, the U.S. Navy and other large entities. So, I can feel both ends of the pain for developers and whatnot. And my background also happens to include about almost 50 different database APIs connectivity. So I pretty much...
Sounds like you're a busy guy.
Yeah. But there's a lot of flavors from pure objects to now the NoSQLs to the SQLs. And, there's a lot of sometimes impedance mismatch, which we'll see momentarily, especially with GenAI and whatnot coming out today.
Gotcha. So we've got some really interesting stuff to talk about today. And I wanted to just kind of give people a reminder on some of the terminology we're going to be using. And so one of them that you're going to hear probably a lot is retrieval augmented generation. And I want you to think about like our common use case is to say, pull in some customer support and service automation, creating chatbots, virtual assistants, things like that, very, very common use cases. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Azure AI retrieval augmented generation. And that's a no-code solution that enhances those AI capabilities by combining information retrieval with some generative AI models. So it really helps users create interactive and dynamic reports by leveraging AI to retrieve relevant data and to generate some insightful narratives and visualizations. It also really helps with tuning complex data sets into some actionable insights. So all really important stuff. But Bill, I know that we've got a lot to learn from you today about retrieval augmented generation. And I'd love for you to kind of start showing us. So let's definitely jump into it.
Sure. So I'll first start off like why Cosmos DB, why do I like it especially? So one of the main reasons is it's just really nice to just store things and not worry about schemas early on in development. So you can evolve the application and backfill schema enforcement and whatnot when the time comes. It gets out of the way. Also, Cosmos DB is very scalable, and you have a lot of deployment options everywhere in the world. So if you need data access near your data, you can do that. Also, just the JSON objects naturally map to the business domain. So in this example, the financial portfolio, we have nested JSON, some for stocks, some for bonds as arrays, and also profile type stuff. So that makes our lives as developers a whole lot easier. It ends up causing some ripples downstream that I think Qarbine addresses, but it is a very productive environment. That's why we mainly like the Cosmos DB world. One thing that we've seen is, as developers, it's really efficient to deliver apps. And in the past, what we've seen is 2 weeks later, everyone loves the app, but then they want to get to the data. And that's when, the record scratches and suddenly the developer teams may be asked to be in the report writing role. That can be really painful when you're really leveraging the Cosmos DB document models and embedded type of arrays. So we hope we can address that as well. Real quick, where we fit also in the spectrum. So there's a lot of good visualization tools out there to the left. We're more focused on the details behind those dashboards, and we'll see how the embeddings can come into play upfront for searching, and also downstream for the completions or the RAG side of things. And as I mentioned, we're just going to cover like 2 of the different tools, but it's a whole tool set for the Cosmos DB developers. And we're going to cover the querying side and the analytic side and the reporting templates. So let's jump into real quick the first little demo here. And so here we're going to find a query. So here we have a collection that happens to have the planets in it. But what's interesting with the RAG world and GenAI worlds, I can just paste this in and hit the send prompt. And it's going to go and formulate a query for me. And what's really amazing here is I didn't tell it the diameter of Earth. It just knows it. And if I can go and set the query and just run it, close that, and there's the answer. So up front, there's a whole lot of things we can do very quickly in the Cosmos DB world by using AI to help us formulate the queries. It's pretty good stuff. The other thing we can do is, of course, we want to explain queries. So this is a moderately complex query. You can get into some crazy ones. But here we can just hit the little light bulb, and it'll start explaining it and ask AI. And it's going to find the books in the collection that have less than 400 pages are available for purchase. And were published between the years 2000 and 2023. Return the first 25 results. So you can imagine it really helping a team share their knowledge and understand what each other are doing as they develop types of queries, just on the development side. And we'll soon get into the RAG side as well. Let's jump over to this. So there are good examples of some articles applying vector searches and whatnot. If you go to our website, there's a link off of resources and articles and tutorials to a document that we put together. And in that document, you don't need to copy this down because it's in the doc. There's all about vector search and some tutorials. So offline, you guys give it a try. Beware that the demo or the document here wants an M40. So you want to use these for a short time because they're fairly expensive little testing machines. Okay. So let's go and see how we can start applying the RAG world. So first, in the querying side, we saw in embeddings, so Cosmos DB supports embeddings. And this little chunk here, what we're going to do is we're actually going to prompt the user for some phrase. And this little macro will, behind the scenes, ask OpenAI to get the embeddings. We'll get those embeddings, insert it into our query as that vector parameter. We'll go and run the query, and then we'll see the result. Horror fantasy or something. I can type. There we go. Okay. So all that was done behind the scenes, and here are all the different matches for this particular example. So you don't have to know a whole lot about how this all fits together. It just works. And the prompt here can be really dynamic. You can concatenate strings together or whatever makes sense for you. Sometimes I've seen prompts that are almost like paragraphs. The example we just did was pretty straightforward. So let's go and see how that applies. So we're going to go and run this. So our horror fantasy movies. Run that, and voila, here's a page that we can go and actually embed in our application. The cast and genres were embedded documents in our JSON object, and those were easily formatted. You can go and click on the lovely little image and see the image. And all this can be really interactive. So as developers, it's nice to be able to, for the end user, deliver an experience that flows from your custom app into what happens to be a Qarbine generated page. And then in Qarbine, you can actually have buttons and interactive elements that then call back into your application. So for the end user, it's just one whole experience and it just works. You're not like copying something from the custom application, going into signing some other application silo, tap, 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 navigating, pasting, and then 5 minutes later, you get what you want. So for end users, they're much happier. For developers, we're all happier because they're not bugging us. And it all just works. So to get the cast, if we go and look at our main retrieval, we had a variable set up called main. And in that, again, we had a cast field, which was an embedded array. That'll then drive our little loop that formats our cast elements. And we have a very similar type of concept for the genres. So get the main element, get the genres, and that drives our loop within the actual application. And the net is this. So you can do this in like under 5 minutes easily. With a different tool, with SQL tools, it'll be really painful because you have these perfectly good JSON objects that then have to get flattened. And then you have to reconstitute those perfectly good JSON objects at your end. So there's a whole lot of gymnastics, and we basically avoid all those gymnastics. And it's worked out well. So Jay, what do you think so far?
So far, so good. Things are looking good. I'm curious to see what's next.
Okay, so let's move forward.
Absolutely.
And then go to our, so we saw our little dynamic embeddings here. We can come over and let's look at our templates. So this is one of the classic reports I've done for a long time. So in a previous venture, I had most of Wall Street as clients. So this is very natural. And as I mentioned before, in the reports that we generate, you can have interactive capabilities. So these are just links out into another web page. But some of these links can be calls back into your application. So early in like December, January, we had pondered, well, it'll be really cool with GenAI being really hip. What would happen if we took that text and asked OpenAI or some other, completion RAG type world, comment on this. So we did that. And what's amazing is this is what came out. This varies depending on when you run it as well. So this stock diversity in this investment portfolio is really quite low, yada, yada, yada. But it's very easy now to incorporate all of these things into your application. So we can see how that's done. So again, this is our financial portfolio with our nested stocks and bonds. Profile is a document and address items is an array as well. And then if we go and run this, if I do this right, oops, the current. So there's our object. There's our output. And the output, the stocks were iterated through just like with the genres and the cast members. The bonds were iterated through very simply, and also with the address items. And in the RAG flow, let's see how that works. So with Qarbine, we can go and create a dynamic prompt. So this is just a very simple text entry field, but you can have checkboxes, radio boxes, lists, and the whole 9 yards. So the user would enter some value. In this case, I entered horror fantasy movies. That goes to our back end. We're going to then hit OpenAI, ask for the embedding. That then gets filled in to our query that's in bold here. That's then going to go hit Azure Cosmos DB. That's going to come back with an answer set. Now, in the report processing world, we're going to be, at that point in time, having formatted that snippet of the overall report. As I mentioned, we're then going to dynamically, we have a cell called that has the macro completions. We build up a prompt. And so comment on the stock diversity, and it's going to append the text that we currently have. Send that to OpenAI. That comes back, and voila, there's our RAG. So it's super easy end to end to leverage OpenAI, Cosmos DB vector search, RAG, all in a simple reporting and analysis information environment. So it's very powerful for what you can do. Okay, let me go to the next one.
And just want to remind everybody, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. We'd love to hear what you have to ask. Obviously, Bayaj asked if the current functionalities of Azure Cosmos DB being presented as an integration of Qarbine, and that's right. What we're doing is showing specifically how Qarbine is accessing Azure Cosmos DB eventually to present the results that we're working with today. I will let Bill continue, but remember, if you got more questions, please put them in the chat.
Right.
Back
So
to you.
as part of the whole environment, I mentioned being able to very easily, even in users can go and create these prompts. And you can also create custom prompts. So in this example, for the movie search, we just have 2 elements, a heading and a simple text area. But you can see in the left-hand palette, you can add most any widget imaginable. Hit the go button. And this is, again, what we incorporated into our template. And what's nice in the Qarbine world is, just like as coders, we get to reuse code libraries. Well, we sort of borrowed that same concept. So our template here is referencing by name this data retrieval component, in this case, the all portfolios. And instead of having a report have the formatting, the retrieval, everything all in one big bundle, we purposely separate out those 2 components. So the data retrieval can then be reused again and again and again across different analyses. And then if you add an index or do some other tuning, you just have to change like one component, and all those consumers, could be tens, could be hundreds, instantly benefit from that. So there's a lot of like conceptual code reuse, if you will, that makes everyone's lives easier. And depending on your team organization, you may have some people who are really good or focused on the retrieval side, and another set of people who are really focused on the report writing, if you will, side. And everyone can do what they're really good at and really leverage each other's skills, because all this is stored in a central catalog that's then discoverable. I mentioned the prompting over here. Oops. So this one doesn't have a prompt, but the other one did. And that's, again, where you would go and just choose something from the catalog. It could be something from the recents world, for example, and just select it, and everyone's good. So all that sort of like, that's only 3 of the different 10 tools that we have to really make developers' lives easier, so that you can go and incorporate RAG, leverage OpenAI at both the development side and during the runtime as well. Yeah, so if there's questions of what we're doing and where we're going, more than happy to answer whatever questions people have.
Right now, we don't have any questions from the audience, but I want to remind everybody, if you do, feel free.
Yeah. So on the website, I mentioned there's really good articles on vector search. in Cosmos DB. So just go to this link, and in that Google Doc, there's some other links that you can jump off to see the other information that's out there. I'll put a plug in for the Cosmos DB Live. There's tons of great episodes, whether for detailed tech dives or just how it's being used. And so congratulations, Jay, on all this content that you're creating, because it's very useful for the community.
We do our absolutely. We do our best to make sure that there's plenty out there for everybody.
Yeah, and also if you just want to try out like the querying side of things, there's a free sandbox. Just sign up. We need your email just to have a private folder name of some sort. Kick it around. There is a link to a guide for the different ways you can use Qarbine, whether the different querying tools or the formatting tools, it's there. And in that, you'll see in our template designer that I'll bring up real quick is we sort of combined, and this is fairly complex, some of the formatting power of Microsoft Word along with the formula power of Excel. So for example, in here, the value of a stock holding, so the hash sign is indicative of a field name. So take the number of shares and multiply by the price. It's very intuitive, unlike in Excel, you'd have F5 times F6 or something. And this content is then going to be used in a sum. So again, the look and feel from a formula standpoint is like Excel. Formatting is almost like Word, and then for laying out, it acts like PowerPoint. So it's very approachable. And there's some hints as well. So this is actually the structure on the right-hand side of that main retrieval. So you can go and just grab something, add a cell, whatever. You need to select a grid. Okay, fine. So you can very quickly build reports and then share that and dynamically actually embed them in your application. So that's the very quick highlighting tour of what Qarbine's all about, how we leverage the Cosmos DB world so that we can do reports like this super quickly. Because if you try this in another environment like SQL, it would be really painful. So I've lived that world, and that's part of the reason why we built this.
It's all about the tools that you need to be able to best complete the job that you have. And so creating tools that work alongside Cosmos DB, really, really huge. Thank you so much, Bill. So the question is, do you have anything else you'd love to show us today? Actually, we do have one question that just came in. Biaj asked, Qarbine looks like a platform to create GenAI application using Cosmos DB. Does Qarbine facilitate deploying the application, and how Qarbine helps for error handling?
Okay, so we'll take the first part. So we're not really like a Kubernetes deployment platform, if you will. That's how I read that question. The other distinction here is we are in the marketplace as a VM that you deploy into your own VPC. So that's by design. So you can go and deploy our VMs anywhere next to your data. No data is ever going to flow through us. Learn that lesson. Goldman Sachs is not going to flow their data through us. Nor should they. Don't want that burden. So you do what makes sense, and you can go and incorporate this VM into how you're managing your other VMs to get your work done. So it's really flexible. And I don't remember the other half of that question.
Sure, I'll bring it back up, no problem. The other part of the question is, does Qarbine facilitate deploying? And we just went that we're not doing application deployment like we are saying traditional, client server methodology or something like that. This is a tool for working with data, not necessarily serving it on a web app or an app. Am I right by saying that?
Well, so Qarbine can be embedded in your own application. So your application can have menu items or buttons, and in that one page, you can go and embed Qarbine. So your app drives Qarbine to do the reports, and in those reports, you can have buttons that then call back. It's up to you.
Gotcha.
But for the end user, it's just one whole experience. So it's really flexible. The other thing that's a neat twist is that you can actually do reports on your data environment. So give me a report on all the collections I have. What are the indices? All that stuff that can be really painful to navigate. It's nice to just have the consolidated listing, and then in that report, you can actually have buttons and links to the real, native Azure web pages. But rather than navigate up, back, it gives you a nice jumping off point.
Gotcha.
So it's not just for application data; it's for the database supporting the applications.
Very cool. So, Bill, I know that people can follow up by going to Qarbine.com. We've got the URL right there. What's the best way people could get in touch with you if they'd like to continue the conversation?
Sure. So my personal email is B as in Bill, Reynolds, REYNOLDS @Qarbine.com. I'm on LinkedIn. There's commentary. Love to hear from you. There's a survey up on the Qarbine website about services that you'd like to see. If you want to see more like Gremlin and Cosmos DB, for example. It's a whole nother flavor, which is really cool about Cosmos DB, is how all these querying flavors. So depending on your application, it makes sense.
We want to be the platform for everyone's data. So
exactly.
Absolutely. So we've got to bring somebody back in to be able to help us wind things down here. I want to call back Danny. Danny, there you are. Hey, Danny.
How you doing, guys?
We normally finish up the show with a survey. So you want to tell everybody a little bit about what we've got going?
Yeah, we're always trying to produce great events like these. So any feedback would be greatly appreciated. You can click the link attached, and we can also post it in the chat. And if you just please remember to enter that event attendee code 22322 and give feedback about the event, it would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. And Danny, I want to say thanks again for helping us out this month. I really appreciate it. Bill, thank you so much for sharing some time with us today.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Always appreciated to have members of our community take part in doing these. So, Danny, I'm going to say goodbye to you. See you later. Thank you again. And Bill, once again, I want to say thanks. Like we said before, people can find you on LinkedIn. They can send you that email, breynolds@Qarbine.com. And I think we've got everything. So thank you so much, Bill.
Thanks for everything you do to the community.
Absolutely. Take care. And hey, everybody, I'm going to say goodbye to Bill. Goodbye, Bill. Thanks for coming aboard. So what do we have left for today? We've got a little bit of extra time left. And I want to make sure your time is used very well. And so to go ahead and close out, I've got a really cool interview from Cosmos DB Conf between Kirill, who is our GM, our VP of Azure Cosmos DB, and Massimiliano. He is from TomTom. He did a really great interview about how TomTom is using generative AI. I know you saw a little clip of it, of his talk, but I want to show you a little bit of his interview just because we've got some extra time left. So let's take a look.
Now, let me invite to the studio one of our customers, TomTom, who are on the edge of using AI in their applications. I would like to welcome Massimiliano Ungheretti to our studio. Massimiliano, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My short name is Massi, and I'm a staff data scientist at TomTom, where I work on data and machine learning for different product areas, including, for instance, the search engine that actually runs in many cars. But the past year and a bit have been all about generative AI for me. So we've been identifying different opportunities to apply different techniques coming out. And I'm particularly proud of the work we've done on the latest advances for voice assistants for use in cars.
That's awesome. It's really great to have you. Massimiliano, you guys were on the edge of, and you adapted AI very early. Could you tell us a little more about the use case where you use AI and Cosmos DB together for your application?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is the in-vehicle assistant I was talking about. this assistant lives in the cloud in the first instance. And we obviously needed some kind of database solution to get started. And so Azure Cosmos DB was kind of the go-to solution. To make it much more concrete, we've been using the Python SDK because that was our prototype, Python, to interact with the NoSQL database. And primarily, the very foundation of any kind of assistant or chatbot is the conversation history, because otherwise we'd be like a goldfish. So that's the first place that it hit. But we've started storing other things in there as we went along. So in that way, it kind of also supported the prototyping process.
That's awesome. And what's the capability? You had a choice of many databases. What capabilities of Cosmos DB you found particularly useful for your scenario?
Yeah, so I learned from previous projects that, taking off-the-shelf managed services is a great starting point, usually. And so we started exploring them. But basically, most of the candidates that we ended up with were, flavors of Cosmos DB. So that basically became the choice. I think the major alternative would be to go for a SQL database, where I think you will have to think of all your data structures beforehand, and it slows you down, even if it's just a little bit. You can try, immediately to change your data structures on the fly if you're using a NoSQL database. So that kind of made the final decision, I think.
That makes sense. I've heard this from many developers building AI applications that said to make an application smart, you have to iterate fast. And to iterate fast, NoSQL database, they were kind of built for this purpose.
Yeah, I think this is especially important when developing for AI because it moves much faster, right? So if you're doing well, you're going to be trying out ideas from lots of different papers and blogs all the time. And, one less bottleneck to try out things is always great.
That makes a lot of sense. What did you learn through your journey? I think this would be a great lessons for our viewers as they're all on the same journey as you.
Yeah, so I'll touch on that on our session. But what I find personally most exciting is that generative AI is kind of opening up a new, and this sounds a bit pompous, but a kind of a new programming paradigm. Yeah, so you move some things from code to language, which changes everything about how you develop. So I would say, for instance, testing, even basic testing becomes different because you have non-deterministic behavior in models. What's a good answer, right? So you have a lot more fuzzy answers in assistants. That's a difficult problem. So lots of new programming patterns. I think that's one thing to watch out for. I think especially relevant for people watching this is retrieval augmented generation, RAG, which I'm sure are going to be featured in a bunch of sessions. And the second lesson definitely would be that this quick iterations, especially if you're doing AI apps, are really important.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Massimiliano. Just to remind everyone, Massimiliano has a session later in the day. Please be sure to tune in. Really exciting stuff. I had a preview. It's great learnings, great lessons for everyone building AI applications all around. How do you test? How do you build responsible AI applications? Thank you so much, Massimiliano. So great to have you on the show.
Sure. Thank you.
And that was a great interview. It was from Azure Cosmos DB Conf. If you look below, you'll see there are links for you to use if you'd like to go and watch any of the videos from the show. The music is on, and what does that mean? It means it's time for us to say goodbye. I want to say thanks to my guest today, Bill. It was really great to have you. Thank you to everybody in our audience. I want you to know that if you'd love to be part of the show, if you'd like to present at a future meetup, we've got an intake form. It is right there. You can go to aka.ms/Azure Cosmos DB/user group submission. You can submit your idea. You can be part of the show just like Bill was, just like all of our other guests. We've got another one next month. We've got some great stuff to share with you. You'll be seeing all the social media messages and all the invites that we normally send out. But until then, I want to say goodbye. I want to say thank you. And I want to say that I will see you again next month. So until then, have a great rest of your day, rest of your week, and be sure to keep using Cosmos DB. Until then, see you next time.